So behind me is the enamel work factory that was owned and operated by Oskar Schindler, the man that was credited with saving over 1,200 Jewish people from their inevitable death during the Holocaust. This factory is in Kraków, Poland. This is where the film Schindler's List is mostly based out of. He's an interesting character. He initially was from Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland. He was somebody that identified as a German during the takeover. And actually, I learned this. He came over to Poland, to Krakow, Poland, in the early stages of World War II as an agent for the Germans. And he quickly found himself... he found some business opportunities. There was this factory right here was shut down right before the war, and he took it over and hired mostly Jewish workers. He was able to, as you probably have seen in the movie, bribe many German officials so that they would look the other way, and his better treatment for Jewish people. He gave them regular food. I mean, he gave them probably better rations than most non-Jewish Polish people got, and they were allowed some level of protection. He also had, for a while, he had a special sub-camp located near the factory where they were treated better. They were less likely to be shot by the Germans, or in many cases, actually, it was Ukrainians. They were known as the Blacks because they wore black uniforms. But then eventually the SS kind of took over and ran the camps around this area. I think it goes without saying how moving and how inspiring his story is. I mean, in the face of so many Germans, either because they believe in the Nazi ideology or because they're swept up in the fear of being punished or sent to a concentration camp for speaking out, you have this guy who made a real difference. He saw this injustice of the Holocaust that was happening, and he did everything that he could. He used his privilege, he used his power to secure the lives of all these people that would live on and have children, and their children have children. And I don't know, I forget the actual number of how many people are alive today because of Oskar Schindler, but it's a lot. I mean, he has a legacy now. Nowadays, I just went through the museum that's in there, which is primarily just about Nazi occupation of Poland, both for Polish Christians and Jews. So I am in the former Jewish ghetto in Kraków, Poland, where Jewish people were forced to live following Nazi occupation. This area was a few square blocks. It was meant to house, before the war, 3,000 people. The Germans would force about 17,000 Jewish people to cram into this section of the city that, for all intents and purposes, became a prison. There's a memorial monument behind me also, full of empty chairs. When they were forced out of their house, when Jewish people were forced out of their houses, they oftentimes brought all of their valuables, as much as they could take, and also chairs. as well, so they'd have some place to sit wherever the destination that they'd end up at. I was doing a little research also while I was here to kind of give you the scale of the Holocaust in Poland, and I found some pretty terrifying numbers. Before the Holocaust, it's estimated that about 3.5 million Jewish people lived in Poland, and of that 3.5 million, 3 million were murdered during the Holocaust in Poland, around here, in Auschwitz, of course, and also something like 90% of all Polish Jews died during the Holocaust, or were murdered during the Holocaust. Today, Poland has a Jewish population of about 10 to 20,000. So of course, like a lot of those that survived would eventually move to the United States, Israel, in the years that followed. Pretty damning. This part of the town is also featured in Schindler's List. They were forced in here at the start of World War II, at the start of German occupation, but then there was also a liquidation process, as shown in the movie, where they were then all forced out into adjoining concentration camps or death camps. Many were murdered in the process as well. So I have taken a tram into the suburb of Płaszów, right outside of Krakow, and this is actually the site of what used to be a concentration camp, the same one that was featured in Schindler's List. There's not a whole lot of it left, although I just started exploring. There's like an information little sign when I came in, and it said that the Red Army, when they got here, they ripped up most of it. And so I think nowadays it's mostly just a park, but there are still some buildings remaining that I'll take videos of. Here's a grave of a woman that started a school for Jewish girls here, and also right next to the entrance, this building right here that is fenced off was around when the concentration camp was around. Some soldiers were housed here, but also the basement was used as a prison prior to people being executed. If like Jewish people were caught on the quote Aryan side of the fence, they were kept here until they were executed. So the site where this concentration camp is occupying used to be a Jewish cemetery that they leveled and replaced it with a concentration camp. That would kind of explain why in the movie, like, the entrance is paved with headstones of Jewish people. They just ripped them up and then used their headstones for pavement, essentially. This was this is a pre-burial hall that used to be here, that I guess was kind of used for stables, for farmers, for Jewish farmers, things like that, and also was used as a temple. And in 1944, the Germans destroyed it. They blew it up, and this is what remains of it. So this concentration camp came into existence in October 1942, right after the liquidation of the Krakow ghettos. They wanted to have them in a concentrated area, in a concentration camp. It was overseen by the infamous Austrian SS officer Amon Goeth, who was brutal, who seemed to kill people for fun, as portrayed in the movie. In total, about 30,000 people, mostly from Krakow, Jews, mostly from Krakow, came through here. There was also several Hungarian Jews that came through here as well. And all totaled, about 5,000 of them were murdered or worked to death or died from disease here. This picture right here is a photograph of the main area of the concentration camp. And this is it now. Again, this isn't like Dachau or Auschwitz. It's largely not preserved. It's mostly a park. And there's some dogs that are saying hi to me. I'm not sure what this is. There's no sign for it, but obviously it's the remnants of some type of building. I don't know if it was built before it was turned into a concentration camp or after. But I was also reading that there was also a mass grave here. There were about 2,000 people that were murdered during the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto that were buried here in a mass grave as well. I know that many of the people that were murdered and then buried here were, before the Soviets showed up, were exhumed and then burned in mass on these grounds as well. It's eerie because, you know, a lot of these other concentration camps that I've been to, they try and preserve like the feeling, like the how it was when it was a concentration camp. But now it's this very almost peaceful, I mean, it is peaceful. It's this very peaceful park. And if you didn't know, if you weren't reading the signs that were posted everywhere, it would be kind of hard to imagine, hard to tell that this was a place that was used to murder people. I think actually it was not a building. I think that this is the remains of the cemetery that was here. These are the remains of the headstones that I guess they decided not to entirely rip up or what. It was too much work. But it looks like this guy was died in 1932, it looks like. And so that would predate the opening of the concentration camp, predate World War II. And when I look at it, it kind of looks like these could be graves. This is the site of where many people were executed. This was on top of a hill overlooking the main campground. People were taken over here, oftentimes stripped down naked, and then shot into this ditch right here, where there's now an apple tree. Of course, many of them were later exhumed before the camp was closed down. And here's the opposite end of the main area that I've been kind of wandering around. I'm going to read a quote from one of the signs posted. The inmates were working in workshops producing goods for the armaments industries of the Third Reich. The old part, the Bergerstrasse, included a watchmaker's, a body shop, a furrier's, metalworking, upholsterers, and other workshops. They were repairing items stolen from the Jews.